Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is 9:57 on a Monday morning. Good old Monday. Pretty gray, overcast day, but pretty warm. So hope everyone's doing good. It's an exciting week here. Uh, Coming up Friday, I am going to see one of my favorite electronic artists. Probably for me the most influential and the main like key figure in the world of progressive house music, and that is Anthony Papa. We're going to see him this weekend, Friday, down in Boston, and super excited. He is, when it comes to house music and dance music, uh, one of my favorite styles of electronic music. And Anthony Papa for me is the man. He there's a lot of great there's been a lot of great DJs and electronic artists doing that style of music for decades now. But for me, he's always been the biggest influence and just all around my favorite. And he kind of does this unique style of progressive house, but he'll take kind of traditional forms of house music, but blend it with other kinds of styles and genres. And a lot of his stuff tends to be, very atmospheric, very dark. He's just so incredible. So he's coming, and he's based out of Australia, so he's coming to Boston. Super excited. And it's a rare thing to really see him. He hasn't been to the States in quite a while, so I never really thought I'd get a chance to see him play and perform. So I'm super excited. And yeah, so there'll be a report. I did a big show on Anthony Papa. I think it was about maybe a month ago or so, as being one of my favorite musical artists. Definitely, when it comes to house music, he is the greatest, uh, you know, guy around. He does all kinds of things. He runs a few different record labels. He's also a producer and remixer. He's also an original artist, multifaceted artist, and he's been around for decades. And it's just amazing that he's got this longevity, and he's still just putting out great mixes and just putting out so much great music. And when it comes to my band Quantum, because obviously house music has a very big influence on our sound. Artists like Deep Dish, Sasha, Sander Kleinberg, a whole slew of other DJs and electronic artists. When it comes to kind of the house side of things, house music side of things, but Anthony Papa is the biggest influence. So very excited. It's a pretty cool year that way this year, because I'm going to not only am I going to get a chance to see Anthony Papa, who is again one of my favorite house DJ, house house music musician. But then I'm also going to see Alltecker later this year, which is like my favorite band of all time. And so, yeah, pretty. It's kind of a dream come true this year as far as going to these shows. The Alltecker show is not until like October, like Halloween, so it's a little ways away, but it's still something to very much look forward to. And then this week, so today's show is going to be on a movie that I kind of have I don't know, kind of an interesting, weird history with, being that like I had heard about this movie a couple of years ago, and then for whatever reason, I forgot about it. It just went on a back burner for in my brain, completely forgot about it until this past weekend. I went to Opera House Video to get some movies. Typically, when I go to Opera House Video, I usually always buy a lot of new releases or rent a lot of new releases, because I like to stay current. I like to try to check out new stuff, even though 90% of the time I'm watching a lot of old, much older films, a lot of trashy exploitation movies. But I love all kinds of movies. That's my jam. But I try to stay current, try to keep my finger to a degree on the pulse of like what's coming out. Uh, you know, New releases, whether they're in the theater or they go direct to DVD or what have you. This year has been really really tough. 2025 I don't think has been a very good year for movies so far, with the exception of Osgood Perkins' The Monkey, which was really awesome. I saw that in the theater probably 3 weeks ago to a month ago, and I don't know of anything that's coming out right now that I'm really excited about. So we'll see. It's still, I guess, kind of early, but nothing really that I can think of offhand coming down the pike that looks really exciting. I did see the trailer for the new Tron film, and that actually looks really awesome. That's coming out in October. The Nine Inch Nails are doing the soundtrack for that film, and the trailer looks awesome. Jared Leto is in it, so that looked pretty promising. But that's not coming out till October. So other than that, I can't really think of anything that I'm like, okay, I really want to see this. But anyway, so this movie that I'm going to talk about is a movie that a friend of mine had told me about 2 years ago, which is crazy. And I remember I had totally forgot about the whole situation up until Saturday. So when I went to Opera House Video on Saturday, I was browsing around for movies like I do, and they have a pretty decent Blu-ray selection there, and they do have a pretty good selection as far. It's gotten better too, I think, over the past year or two. But I typically mostly just rent DVDs there because they have more DVDs. But their Blu-ray selection has gotten better. So one movie I came across, and I just saw the title, and I was like, for some reason, when I saw the title, it rang a bell, and that is Bones and All. It it's a movie that came out. Technically, it came out in 2022, so it came out 3 years ago, which is crazy. But I remember having a friend tell me about it 2 years ago. And it was directed by Luca Guadagnino. Luca Guadagnino, who is, I think he's Italian. He's an Italian director. Again, I had completely forgot about this movie. And I remember my friend had said that this movie was really good and terrifying and gross as all hell. And for whatever reason, I completely forgot about it. The cast for this film is pretty awesome. Taylor Russell and Timothy Chalamet, and also Mark Rylance. Really great cast. I'm a big Timothy Chalamet fan. He's been in some really great films. Huge fan with what he did in the sequel to Dune that came out last year, a masterpiece of a film. And I've seen him in quite a few films since then, and then also before. And he's one of those actors to watch. I think he's really great. I think he's young. He's got fire. He's got a real deep depth of talent. So I was really intrigued with this movie. But again, I didn't know anything about this movie. I knew it was a horror movie, and I remember my friend saying that this movie was like really kind of gross, like as far as the the subject matter, and that it was like a pretty disturbing movie. So I was like, okay, cool. But then I forgot about it, and when I was in Opera House Video on Saturday, I saw that they had it on Blu-ray, and I watched this. I got it right here. Actually, yeah, Bones and All. It's on Blu-ray, and it came out. Technically, it says 2022 when I looked it up, but when I looked it up further, it said 2023. So this movie's like 3 years old, which is crazy. But it just came out. I don't think Opera House Video had it up until very recently on Blu-ray. I could be wrong, but I never came across it. So I watched Bones and All last night, and it's kind of a fucking awesome movie. I was really I was really into it. And I started watching it Saturday. I started watching it Saturday, but I started watching it a little bit too late. A little bit too late at night. And a lot of times I won't watch, like, especially if it's a new movie, a movie I haven't seen. I typically won't start watching a movie, like at 11 o'clock or something, because usually my attention's pretty, it's usually by that time my attention for things is, kind of in the woods somewhere. I'll watch movies at that time. Usually I'll watch a movie that is, maybe something I've seen a couple times or whatnot. But as far as a brand new film for me for the first time, I typically like to watch it when I'm, pretty awake and alert. So I typically will watch those kinds of films, new releases or movies that even most of the time now, or movies that I buy and I haven't seen. I'll watch them in the early part of the evening. But I started watching this movie, Bones and All, a little bit on the later side, and I was digging it, but I was kind of getting a little bit too tired. And then I was like, I got to watch this tomorrow when I'm a little bit more awake and kind of with it. So that's what I did. I basically started it again last night earlier, and this movie was awesome. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with this film. It's shocking. It's the gore, the practical effects in this movie are kind of amazing. The story is very very original. It's one of the more original and it's definitely a horror film, but it's very very unusual and it's very very unique. Um, I was surprised. I was really surprised with this film. There were a lot of things in this movie that really um, I was excited about and that I did not expect. Because essentially, you know, the basic premise of this movie is that it's essentially about these cannibals, and it's you could look at this film as kind of being a love story with the two main characters being cannibals, which sounds, you know, totally crazy. And with that premise, like I'm sold. I'm like, yep, I'd see that. I'd be down for checking it out. And that's the case with this movie. It's basically, I mean, it definitely is a love story, but very unusual, not like anything I've seen before. And it has other influences of, from other genres in the horror world, and I'm gonna get into talking about that. But essentially, the story, the framework of the story is about these people that live in kind of modern society that are zombies, or not zombies, that are cannibals, and they have to feed off of human flesh in order to basically survive. And it's about them trying to, live in a, kind of quote unquote normal society, and how they're going to interact, how they're going to live, how they're going to survive, because essentially they're killing and eating people. So that's kind of the premise of the movie. And the two kind of protagonists, the two main characters, are essentially these cannibals, and they fall in love, and it's like this kind of this, and it's also like a road trip or road trip story. They live this very nomadic life. They're always trying to evade persecution because they are essentially killing and eating people randomly. it's it's very interesting. It definitely has, and the other thing that's interesting about this thing, there really isn't um, there really isn't like a supernatural element to it. These people who are these cannibals, they don't have any kind of power. They're not they're not immortal like vampires would be. They're not back from the dead. they seem to be kind of mortal people, but that just happen to they have this need to feed and feed off of human flesh. Like that's the basic premise, and they're kind of in the minority in the society, and it's very interesting because you see these people kind of surviving, doing these horrible, heinous things, and trying to function in this kind of normal town that these normal towns that they live in, or it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. It's super gory. The movie is definitely disturbing. It's very, very disturbing. It's extremely dark. The other thing that's so interesting about this movie is it definitely has this love story, and when you start, feeling, at least for me, when I started getting really into the story, I start getting, start really caring about the characters, especially the cast of Taylor Russell, who plays Marin, and then Timothy Chalamet, who plays Lee, and then probably my favorite character in this whole film is Mark Rylance, who plays this character Sully. It's so interesting because you have all this empathy for them, you care about them, and you see that they have this kind of human quality, where they are capable of all of these human, emotions and interactions with people, and they have they have a lot of layers, but they're really complicated and they're fucked up, and then you kind of feel slightly gross that you care about these people because of how monstrous they are. It's very interesting, and yet it's a love story, but it's extremely dark for obvious reasons. The dialogue, the screenplay for this film is awesome. It's kind of a slow burn film. It's got this very slow paced kind of vibe to it, but the writing for this movie is super awesome. All the characters are super fleshed out. My favorite character in this film is this character called Sully, who is played by Mark Rylance, who plays another cannibal, who is a guy who is older, and he has been living this life for a very, very, very long time since he was born. And he has such a I don't know, he's such a complicated character. He's so fucked up and so creepy, and yet he is so mesmerizing in every scene. There's so many great scenes with him in it where he is, in these scenes with the main characters, and especially with Timothy Chalamet, and it's just such great writing, such great acting, really great. I was really, really impressed with this movie, and it has a little bit of a familiar feel because it is kind of a road trip story, and it is a romance, but it takes that kind of thing and really, like we've seen a lot of movies of characters traveling, across the country or across the world, and we've seen tons of like romance films that have come out, and it takes those kinds of things, those kinds of stories or those tropes that you see in those kind of genre films, but does something totally unique and really different. And you have these like mixed feelings as to like how much you should like these people because of how monstrous they are. It's really interesting. It creates a an area of tension that is really unique, and I was really digging that because it had a real original approach to something that we've seen before. So, and again, the screenplay was great. The direction of this film is really high level stuff. The cinematography for this film is also absolutely gorgeous. It's kind of stunning. Beautiful, beautiful camera work, beautiful editing. It's I don't know. It's really beautifully shot, and you really get the environment that these characters are in. Because they are traveling and they are in these really vast kind of open areas, in the mountains and in these really beautiful isolated areas in the country. It's you really get a sense of that because of the cinematography. It's really gorgeous, and I was really impressed with that. And it does other things too, where it has elements of classic vampire movies. It's got some. It's got this. Well, like certain movies that it kind of reminds me of a little bit are two great classic vampire movies. Near Dark. It has that kind of vibe to it. It has a little bit of this. Um, I could see a film like The Lost Boys being an influence on this movie. More so, like I would say, Near Dark, which is an amazing vampire movie. It definitely has this vampire kind of aesthetic, and you could see that it was influenced by that genre. And then also, I would say by this movie was also influenced by like the zombie genre. It has a little bit of that vibe. It has a vibe from zombie films, I think, and it has an influence. But in particular, I think it has an influence from like The Walking Dead, the TV show, like maybe the first season or something like that. It has that kind of flavor to it, and but yet it's not. It's definitely not a vampire movie. It's definitely not a zombie movie. It's very unique that way. So yeah, I was really impressed with this movie. I was really really impressed, and I'm glad that I stumbled upon this movie 2 years after I was told by a friend about it because I completely forgot about this film. But I was really impressed. And again, the direction. This film was so well directed. It's really tight. It really has. Um, it really has a wonderful script, fabulous cast. Timothy Chalamet is just great. All the characters are really complicated. There's a lot of depth to them. Beautiful cinematography. And the biggest surprise for me was the music. The music for this movie is really, really good. And at one point, it was really funny because, like, it was towards the end of the film. The music is really, really good in this movie. But towards the end of the film, there's this one musical piece that comes on that's like basically just piano and voice. And it was, basically it sounded like it was an acoustic kind of piano with super dry vocals. And it was this really gorgeous tune. And as it was playing, as it was going on in the scene of the film, I was like, man, that's why does that sounds like Trent Reznor. I'm like, it totally sounds like Trent Reznor from, of course, Nine Inch Nails. And I'm a massive, massive Nine Inch Nails show. I'm probably gonna do a music show. I don't think, yeah, I haven't, yeah, I don't believe I have done a show on them. But I'm probably gonna do a show on Nine Inch Nails at some point for a musical, video. So when that song came out, I'm like, man, that sounds a lot like Trent Reznor, but not in a Nine Inch Nails way. Like it was very, it was very. Well, I guess best way to describe it, it was the soundtrack. There's definitely elements of some. I mean, again, the music is incredible. There's some electronic. There's actually quite a bit of like synth heavy kind of electronic music, but there's also songs in the they're part of the score that are kind of more straight up acoustic, acoustic guitar or piano. And obviously, this film is incredibly dark. It definitely has incredible atmosphere to it, and the music is just incredible. And then when this one tune came on, I was like, this totally fucking sounds like Trent Reznor. So I was like, wow, but it wasn't like it didn't have that traditional Nine Inch Nails kind of vibe to it. Or like it didn't have the vibe of what Trent Reznor and Atticus Roth, who is the another amazing electronic artist, who is now or has been a part of Nine Inch Nails for a long time, and Trent Reznor and Atticus Roth have, you know, done so many fantastic film scores. Most notably with David Fincher, they've even won the Academy Award for Best Score. And just amazing, amazing, amazing guys. So so at the end of the movie, I was like, I got to see if that's who this is. And then lo and behold, I saw in the credits all music, all the everything was composed by and performed by Atticus Roth and Trent Reznor. I was like, holy shit, that is fucking awesome. So I was really surprised by that. That was like for me with this movie, it was the icing on the cake where it was like, okay, this movie is pretty dope, and I was really impressed with it. I was really impressed. So and I looked it up afterwards. A lot of times after I see a movie, what I'll do is especially if it's a movie I really like, but I will do it sometimes anyway. But a lot of times after I see a movie that I'm really into, I will look it up online, like on YouTube, to see if there's a lot of reviews and information about it. And I try to, sometimes I do it before, but I try to stay pretty, I want to call it spoiler free. I like to go into things really cold. And this, I was really, I went into it not really knowing anything about it. So I looked it up and I was surprised that I couldn't really find all that much, in light of reviews for this film. Like, especially some of the YouTube guys that I watch, I didn't come across any reviews that they did, and I was kind of surprised. So, um, so I was really surprised, and yeah, but I can't recommend this movie enough. It's really fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful movie. And again, well, the things I did hear about this movie, mainly that this movie was, pretty sick and gross as far as like um, as far as the cannibal aspect of it. It's pretty gnarly. There's some scenes in this movie that are, as far as the gore, it's pretty fucking gnarly. It's pretty nasty. I was really surprised. The other thing is it's all practical effects. But there's some nasty shit in this movie, and there's some really fucked up things that happen in this movie. It's a pretty disturbing movie, and it has, again, it's got all these kinds of different things going on, like I kind of been describing. But the gore aspect of it, it's all from what I could tell, it's all about the use of practical effects and just the practical effects are just awesome. It's a pretty fucked up movie. It's pretty disturbing, but yeah, highly recommend this movie. Bones and all. Came out 2 years ago, so yeah, if you get a chance, please check this movie out. Fantastic movie. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.